Hello again, this is Brother Bob with week number 2, the second clue that's going to reveal the greatest textual evidence ever provided in the history of the Bible. And the first clue was that it was a type. Type was Moses equals deliver. We see in other scenes like Abraham picture God the Father when he was just called to sacrifice his son. So always types in the Bible are something that it equals. This is the first type that I've ever seen in the Bible that it does not fall under that equation. It is more of a solution. So we said that something plus something equals something. That was your first clue that was given. So the second week, the next clue given is that it is referring to Old Testament stories. Now, as Old Testament stories, the ones that you want to point out are numerous that are going to prove that the Bible is this cohesively conjoined textual evidence that will prove that it's the greatest book ever written in history. That people, when they see this evidence, aren't going to be able to dispute that the Bible was written inaccurately. A lot of claims are by atheists and agnostics that the Old Testament is some mythological, made up, convoluted, crazy stories that are no way possibly could happen. But when you learn this type, it's going to show that those scenes are so accurate and precise, God intended for them to be in the Bible, that it's going to make the Bible look perfectly correct. So the first scene is when Adam and Eve get kicked out of the garden. What that pertains to is that when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, they were given animal skins. Well, animal skins come from, obviously, animals. And so most theologians, almost all, would agree that God showed them how to practice sacrificial system. How to actually sacrifice an animal. We see that Cain and Abel had their sacrifices. Abel did it right, Cain did it wrong. They must have been taught by their parents. So God showed them how that they were supposed to sacrifice. Second scene is Noah's Ark. Third is Abraham and Isaac, the sacrificial scene. Next is Sodom and Gomorrah. The next one is many scenes that are by Moses. Moses and when he's a baby and put into a basket of bulrushes, the burning bush, the staff that turns into a snake before Pharaoh. We see Passover in Egypt was the first Passover that was practiced, which is actually two words put together. It meant that on Passover the death angel came to Egypt, and if they'd had the blood on the door lintels, that the death angel would pass over. That's how we get the word Passover. Okay, party in the Red Sea when Moses puts up his staff. Then the Red Sea split, Mount Horeb, when water comes from a rock, that he strikes the rock with his staff, water comes out. Another one is bitter water. They were 3 days out of Egypt and they were come to water and it's bitter. So they throw a tree into it to make it drinkable again. And then the Amorite battle where Moses has staff in his hand, raises his hands. When he has his hands up, they win the battle. When his hands are down, they lose. Next scene is David, when Uzziah is told by King David to bring the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. They bring it back by oxen on a cart, and the Ark of the Covenant falls because the oxen had stumbled, and he tries to brace it from hitting the ground, and he's immediately killed. Elijah at Mount Carmel when he takes on the total of 850 prophets of Baal and Ashtaroth, when they ultimately send fire on a sacrifice to consume it. The prophets with a lost axe. Elijah meets some prophets and they come to him and say, hey, we've lost an axe that was borrowed. And so it's in the Jordan River, and he tells him how to retrieve it using a piece of wood. And finally the scene of fiery snakes in the desert. Now, this is probably the most bizarre of scenes in the Old Testament. And ultimately, it's because the people had complained and moaned about them being out in the desert and being under these conditions, even though God is providing them food and water. And so when they're out in the desert, God sends fiery snakes, and the people come to Moses and say, help us, deliver us, because we're in trouble. Moses makes a brazen serpent, puts it on the end of a stick, and lifts it up in the air, and the people that look to it are saved, and the people that aren't die. When you get down to it, it's once again a picture of faith, of people looking to Jesus on the cross for his works that he did. And those that accept that faith live, and those who reject it die. So finally, once again, we come to my website page is usandgod.com. If you want to order the book, Come On Man, Speak English to Me About God, I highly recommend it. Said that when I went to Bible college, if I could have had this book 25 years ago, with the knowledge that was in it, I would have paid $1,000 for it. Sit there and say, Bob, why is this, how do you get all this information, and why is this so profound? Well, I believe that the profoundness of this message is not because of me being so special, obviously. It is because we see that atheists and agnostics have really raised the level of their argument against God. And so I believe that God is saying we must raise the level of proof against that to combat it. Because people that are spiritual like myself haven't provided the answers to the questions that unbelievers have about God. So to make that claim, I would have paid $1,000 for it. Here's just 3 of the many concepts that are in the book. One is the purpose for your life. Nobody's ever told you the purpose for your life. This book will tell you in 3 minutes what your purpose is for life, where I've asked so many people, and every single person has said, yes, that's exactly right. We would like to know what our purpose in life is. We often think it's a job or a task, but it is not. It's something much more and specific than that. Next one is that in 3 minutes I'll tell you what it's like to be in the presence of God and hell, where I've told over 450 people, over 85% didn't know God, and everyone but one said it was exactly right. And lastly is, according to one spiritual book, said that God made man in his image. When he makes man in his image, that's his likeness. So if we're made in his likeness, we should exhibit certain traits that are similar to God. Most people are going to say, man, if God is like man, we're in a lot of trouble. Well, to an extent, that's a correct statement, but men do have certain general habitual characteristics that when you find them, will say, hey, they're like God and very much. Often we don't do them as great as God. That is totally correct. So an example of a trait that men have, it's nothing food, clothing, shelter, job, it's all in between your ears. So an example of this is power. Men love power, it gives us big heads. We abuse power, we misuse it. Power is a very challenging thing for us as men to handle without it really changing us. Sometimes we can even take power and be very destructive with it. So I named 12 traits how man is like God. And when you finally identify these traits, and by the way, when I've told men these traits, because most men can only name 2 at a time at the most, is that when these traits are identified and I tell them one of them, they automatically shake their head in agreement. It's kind of a neat, really scene. So those, when you ultimately know these 12 traits, then you can match them up against any God, but it will only fit so precisely and cohesively to the exact God. So once again, this is the second clue to the 3 clues that are going to be given next week. See, for the last time, the last clue, tell your friends, join people up in this as a quest to find the truth of God. And this is Brother Bob signing out again. Nice to see you. Wish you a happy day.